Chris here, and I've got a couple of friends with me today on the podcast. So I've got my buddy Thor up here. It's in Hong Kong. Can you say hi, Thor?
Hello, everyone.
Yes, and I've got my buddy Peter Williams down here also, who's up in Hong Kong. Say hi, Peter. Can you hear us, Peter? Okay, maybe.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we're good now. Cool. All right. Well, this is a special productive accidents podcast. So I just want to kind of let Thor kind of share who he is, say a few things about what he's been doing. So go ahead,
Sure.
Thor.
Well, good morning from Hong Kong. It's 7 a.m. on this side of the planet. And my name is Thor. I come from Denmark. I'm a modern day adventurer. I call myself a modern Viking as well. I've been traveling to reach every single country there is in the world since 2013. And the special thing about that is that I'm doing it all without flying, and I cannot return home until I've completed it all, or if I quit and decide to go back home. So I haven't been home now for 7 years, and I've reached 194 countries until I got stuck here in Hong Kong in late January, it was 2020.
Well, that's wonderful. And that's kind of where our story picks up. And I'm going to hand it over to Peter here. So Peter obviously connected us, and Peter wants to explain the productive accidents, and he can share your all's relationship and how this podcast came to be. So go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so I guess a bit of backstory. What are productive accidents? Think of serendipity or happenstance, or anything interesting that happens when you just embrace this concept that you expect good things to happen, and they do. So I've been playing with this idea for about 10 years, and that's a longer story. But what happened was another connection that I met through another series of productive accidents. His name is Adrian Bellick. I met him because he'd been couch surfing around the world for 3 years to make a documentary about happiness, and got to meet him over dinner one night. And I said, well, you're a couch surfer. Where are you staying tonight? And this was a number of years ago. He said, well, I'm okay tonight, but tomorrow night, that would be cool. So I went home and I mentioned to my wife, Catherine, and kids that, look, there's this guy with dreadlocks who's going to come and stay with us for a night or two. Are you okay? And the cool thing is they were totally fine. Adrian came and stayed with us, and he's such an awesome dude. Now he comes back whenever he's traveling through Asia or Hong Kong. He stays with us for a week or two, and he's actually created a new family tradition of hosting couch surfers or visitors. Come to Hong Kong, don't bother staying in a hotel. That's one way of seeing the place, but it's a lot more fun if you can live with a family. And in fact, Thor can probably expand on this, because he lived with a family that was happy to host him for a number of months earlier. Anyway, Adrian reached out to me. He's currently stuck in the Philippines because of COVID, working on a project there. And he said, you should check out this CNN article about Thor and his adventures. And that was enough for me to go, yes, here's another opportunity to meet someone interesting. Connected to Thor on Facebook, I believe. And that weekend he came around for a barbecue, and we've been bouncing ideas and connections and collaborations ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And that's a good introduction to productive accidents. And obviously you met him, and then you shared him with me. And now, because of that, the three of us are in this space together. So it's it's interesting. I was thinking, Thor obviously wants to go to his next country. Peter loves Hong Kong, and I would like to visit Hong Kong. So there's like this very dynamic of the three of us.
And he's trying to get to Australia, which is where I'm from. And I can connect him to a lot of relevant people in Australia. He might end up just staying Australia up on the whole project. It's a possibility.
Well, that's true.
I'm
Anything's
joking,
possible.
But Australia is one of the countries that he has to get to.
Oh, so it's one of the 6 that is left, Thor, is Australia?
Yeah, I've got 9 of them left. And
9.
Australia was planned to be one of the very last ones on my way home. but the way that things have changed, everything's up in the air. And yeah, if I could go to Australia next, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the gratitude part of this talk. Where real simply, so Thor, in this moment, what are 3 things you're grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning and I was healthy, no headache, no pain, no loss. It looks like it's going to be a great day. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm not homeless while here in Hong Kong, and I'm absolutely grateful for all of the love and support that I'm receiving from all around the world. I'm very, very fortunate to have this wonderful community that's following me online, and they write me and they encourage me and they help me and they connect me. And the same thing is going on here in Hong Kong through people like Peter here, and it's amazing to see this connection with you as well. So I'm really grateful for the people around me.
That's wonderful. Peter, what about you? In this moment, what 3 things are you grateful for?
Well, I'm going to backtrack and talk about how we met. And one of the things that has helped me finish a couple of projects is one of Seth Godin's workshops. It was called the Creatives Workshop. And I did that sort of as a parallel piece of learning, I guess, parallel to work, just earlier this year. And it was a community of people that wanted to finish projects. It was trying to create a 100-day streak in whatever your project you're working on. And, like if you're a musician, pick up your guitar and perform something every day. If you're a poet, pick up a pen and write something every day. In my case, I was trying to finish a book, pick up my laptop, and every day that I made any progress, I would put a dot on a 10 by 10 grid. And I tried the day streak, and that's what helped me finish the book. So I'm grateful for that community. But not only did I finish the book, but I was able to just listen in and join other conversations. And someone along the way introduced this group or this series of dinners in New York called Gratitude and Pasta. And I have a gratitude project as well, so it resonated with me immediately, and I thought I should check it out. Similar story to meeting Thor. I reached out to Chris Schember on Facebook and said, I heard you're doing these dinners. They're normally physical, but because of COVID, you flip them to virtual. They start at 7 New York time, and I've joined a few of these different events, and each of them have turned into interesting connections and collaborations. And in fact, a month after I attended that first dinner, they reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to join another one? Here are 3 different dates that you can choose from. And I thought, well, why don't I choose all 3, and each time I'll bring a friend. So another Chris, Chris Davis in Taipei, is a contact through LinkedIn that we'd started a conversation with. And I invited him, and he enjoyed it so much that the following week, he offered to take the group
Peter,
on a virtual
your
walking
mic keeps
tour
cutting
of
out,
his
brother.
type accident that came out of,
Mm-hmm. Your mic keeps cutting out. I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi signal or not. You can continue. I just want to let you know.
Well, let me try and see if that. I'll go into regular data. Sometimes it does. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a long gratitude story, but it's a good one, because what ended up happening was I hosted a walking tour of Hong Kong the following week, and Chris Schember said, "Oh, you should meet Chris Palmore. He's got a gratitude thing as well." And that's how we connected, and it's turned into a series of conversations. So I'm going to say the Creatives Workshop is gratitude number 1. I'm going to say Gratitude and Pasta is number 2. And I'm going to throw out Creative Mornings as the third one because that's happening off the back of this. The Hong Kong edition is starting at around 8 a.m. our time. And by coincidence, Adrian Bellick is the Hong Kong guest this month. So there's a few different universes colliding in one morning.
That's great, man. It's a lot to be grateful for. I love the backstories on that. Obviously, you know, it's nice to hear those stories and tie it into why you're grateful. You know, so Thor and I were talking last week about this podcast, and I thought, you know, he obviously has been and seen a lot, and we were discussing like people being kind to him or seeing him experiencing kindness in his travels. And one of the times he said he'd like to share was basically could share your experience. You said in Poland, right? Was that one of the ones we were talking about, Thor?
Yeah, I have a really nice story from Poland. You want me to go ahead now, or?
Oh yes, please. Yeah.
Sure. So this was really early on in this project. We named this project Once Upon a Saga, and I left Denmark on the 10th of October 2013, and it was sort of still taking shape. And what I knew at the time was that I was aiming at reaching every country in the world without flying. But the cultural elements of going through different countries and different places was a lot lesser than what it is today. And the people element and describing the people I meet and how kind people generally are around the world wasn't really an element at that point as well. And within December 2013, I was in Poland, and winter was coming across. And one thing led to the next, and I got on a train and I went up to a smallish town in Poland at least, called Suwałki. And they joke about that in Poland, and they say this is the coldest place in all of Poland. And it was winter time. And I just needed to, I was on my way. I wanted to go to every country in the world. Let's go, buses, trains, let's go. And I needed to spend the time up there, and I couldn't find a place to stay. I was searching the internet, and I was trying all sorts of things, and I couldn't find a place to stay. And then the hostel I was staying at in Warsaw, in Poland, they said, we can make an internet search in Polish. We're sure we can help you out. So they came back with a list, and there was a name, and there was a phone number, and there was an address. And they said, we spoke to this guy. He doesn't sound very friendly at all, but in the end, you just need a place to stay for the night, and there's the price. So if you're okay to pay for this, just show up and pay the money, spend the night, and leave early in the morning, and you'll be fine. Oh, thank you very much, and you guys are so kind. And I got on the train, and I went up to Suwałki. And then for whatever reason, I didn't search the address. So I had the address on a piece of paper. I didn't have a SIM card. And I went up there, and I figured, well, I'm just going to ask someone in Suwałki, and they'll point me in the right direction. But when I arrived, it was quite a small train station, and it was snowing, and it was white landscape, and it was cold, and it was dark. It was late in the evening, and 4 or 5 other people, they got off the train, and they just kind of dispersed like this, and they were gone. And there were no stores that were open, no cars were driving around. It was just this winter landscape with houses and people and no activity. And I was wondering, well, so who am I going to ask? How am I going to find the address? And then normally I would try to head towards the city center. And you can identify that sometimes by that the buildings are taller, or you'll see the tower of a church or something like this. But there was just no indication of where the city center would be. And then I figured, okay, I'll walk in some direction. So I just said, okay, I'm going to walk this way. And I was walking for 5 minutes, and I didn't see anyone. Nothing was moving. There's just snow and parked cars. And I walked for 10 minutes and nothing. And I walked for 15 minutes. And then I was in this intersection in a residential area. And I was just there with my hat and my beard and my backpack and the snow. And the wind was sort of picking up a little bit, and it was getting later, and I was wondering, like, how am I going to solve this? So, I have the address, I have this, but, is it going to be within the next 10 or 15 minutes, or is it going to be within the next couple of hours? And while I was standing there wondering what to do, a door certainly opened further up the street. And a woman sort of came out on top of this staircase, and the light behind her, and it was almost like
angel.
A vision. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, this is good." And I quickly ran over there, and she was sort of surprised to see me in her neighborhood late at night, and looking at me, go like, "Hello, how are you?" I go, like, I'm fine. How are you doing? She was good. It's like, well, so I'm trying to find this address. Do you know where it is? By the way, do you speak English? Do you speak English? and she looked at me and she went, yeah, I speak English. I'm an English teacher. I was like, oh, that was very lucky out of all the people. So I said, well, this address here, I need to go there. And she's looking at me, go like, what in the world are you doing here late at night? So, oh yeah. And I didn't want to get into my full story. So I just went, well, I'm from Denmark and I'm traveling and I need to go to Lithuania tomorrow, and Suwałki is nearby the border. So I'm trying to find this address, and I'm going to stay there for the night. And she had a look at the address and she went, well, yeah, I know where that is. It's not too far away from here, but wouldn't you much rather just stay at my house? And then I was looking at her, and then I was thinking, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know this woman. She might lead me down into the basement, and no one will ever see me again. Like I you know, who knows about this kind of stuff. So I was smiling, saying, "Oh, thank you very much." But this man here, he's expecting me, and I have to get out there, and it's getting really late. And she goes, "Oh, there's a phone number. We can call him. We can tell him that you're not coming. It's not a problem at all." And I was thinking, well, what am I going to do here? And then my next thought was, I should be more open. The plan was I was going to go to all of these different continents, all these different cultures. I was going to be meeting people all around the world. I should be a lot more open, and I should take some of these chances. And this woman, she looked kind of harmless, and what could really go wrong? And let's see about that. So I accepted her offer. And then she said, okay, she just needs to move her car. Her car, that's the reason why she came out of the house, because a storm was coming across, and she was worried that one of the trees nearby would fall on her car. She said, you wanted to move that. She did that, and then I followed her inside into the house. And then she goes in ahead of me, and she takes her coat off and her shoes off, and she goes in towards the kitchen. And then while I'm kicking my boots off and relieving myself of my big bag, and then I realized she doesn't know my name. She doesn't know the first thing about me. I'm inside her house. So I go like, by the way, my name is Thor. And she goes, oh, that's very nice. My name is Maria. By the way, are you hungry? Because it's really, really late. You must be hungry. Do you want something to eat? And I say, no, don't worry about me. I'm fine. And my stomach is going, and she looks at me and goes, no, I'll cook something for you. So she starts cooking, and it's almost midnight at this point. And then we sit down at the table and we start talking. And her daughter wakes up and comes down the staircase and sees me sitting there with her mother in the middle of the night. And I do not speak Polish, but I'm fairly sure that I know what that daughter was saying. She was like, mother, are you crazy? You can't invite strange men in from the street in the middle of the night. Like, it's just the two of us here. We're defenseless. What are you doing? But the daughter also spoke English, and she happened to be a lawyer. And we spoke with her for a bit, and then she went back to bed. And then after a while, Maria said, okay, let's make the bed for you. And then she actually let me down into the basement, and there was a
you did end up in the basement.
You went into the basement, and there was a guest bed, and she made that for me, and she brought me a towel.
All these torture racks and books on the wall.
No, none of that. Maria was amazing. And then she said, okay, good night, and I'll see you in the morning. So the next morning I woke up, and they went like, yeah, you want to have a shower? And they were making breakfast for me, and the daughter was there. She was making coffee for me, and we sat down and we talked for a bit. And then the next thing that happened was that Maria said, I'll drive you to, I have the car, as you know, I'll drive you down to the bus, and that will take you across to the border. So we drove to the station, and then she stopped in front of the bus, and she went like, okay, are you fine? And can you make your way from here? And I went like, this is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And so the project motto here within Once Upon a Saga has from the very beginning been, a stranger is a friend you've never met before. And that was essentially something that me and some friends, we thought it sounded nice and it would go well with a project like this. but it has been proven over and over and over again. And the Maria story for me is a key story to say, what do I mean when I'm trying to say a stranger is a friend? You know, I've never met Maria. Maria's never met me. None of us, we knew that we existed. And she invited me into her house, and she fed me and showed me all the kindness and hospitality. And she even drove me to the station. You know, someone else might just have had a look at the paper and gone, yeah, you go up to the intersection, you turn left, and then you turn right, and it's the second house. Or on a really good day, maybe they say, you know, I have a car, I can drive you there. It's a 5-minute drive. But she invited me into her home. And then you also have to look at the chances of all of this happening, because I arrived with perhaps the last train of that day, and I was going to walk this way. So I walked 15 minutes in this direction, but I could have been walking that way. She was coming out to move her car. She could have come out to move the car 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later. There were so many things that had to happen in the right order. And then on top of that, she had to be an open-hearted, open mind, very, very kind person. And the interesting thing for me now, 7 years later, is that she's far, far, far from being the only one out there. I've seen so much kindness and so much hospitality from a multitude of people around the world. So yeah, so that's the Maria story.
That's a good story.
That's beautiful. What do you have any thoughts on that story, Peter? Anything sticking out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, right here in Hong Kong, we have another contact who has embraced this idea of kindness. In fact, he has a hashtag, kindness matters. You know, it's almost like his brand, or it is a brand for an NGO here in Hong Kong called Impact Hong Kong. So Jeff Rotmeyer, I don't know how many years ago, only 3 or 4, I believe, started a series of blogs where I think he and 6 friends would choose a different topic. And Jeff's topic was kindness, and other people might have had something on design or photography or something. And those blogs evolved into walking into poorer neighborhoods of Hong Kong and taking boiled eggs and water to give to the homeless. And over time, that snowballed into, I think they have about 5,000 volunteers right now. They have a kitchen in that neighborhood. It's become a fully fledged funded NGO. And what's amazing is I only heard about it again through Creative Mornings. He spoke there earlier this year or late last year. I think it was late. I think it might have been January. Anyway, and that encouraged me to go on one of his kindness walks where, you know, 4 or 5 volunteers went around the neighborhoods, and there is this community of homeless that live in one of the suburbs here. And what's amazing is he has actually gained the trust of, you know, he's gotten to know this community of people, and he's helped, I think he's up to around 200 people that he has helped back into accommodation. And not only that, he's created an ecosystem where he can employ them and help them regain their dignity and everything else. And, you know, you think of old typical projects, if you just put a homeless person into an apartment, that's not going to work, because they actually don't, you know, you need to actually, you know, he talks about the main ingredient that they're missing is love. And, you know, it's such a beautiful story that he's now got created, I think, 3 NGOs, one that helps children and families, adults with Down syndrome. He's created an activity center where it has dance, art, sport in one venue. He's got a clothing store where he sells affordable clothing to people that are trying to rebuild their lives. And anyway, and I love what he's been doing, and we've been trying to promote things like that. But kindness matters is his theme, and it sort of ties into some of the things that Thor was talking about. Helping strangers is a superpower for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. You know, this all revolves around gratitude so much, and I was even talking to Thor earlier about it. You know, the being kind to somebody is a catalyst for gratitude to exist. So the amazing thing is when you allow somebody to have time, or you're kind to somebody, you are allowing a space for them to be grateful for that, which is beautiful. Which Thor tells his story. I can tell he's so grateful about it. I'm grateful to hear it. I don't think we can hear enough stories of people just opening up, just being kind to people, giving, being able to give a space to stay and food and shelter. That's so massive. And then I love Thor sharing the story now after traveling so far, because that, falls in line with my whole idea of like gratitude cubed, where you sit in a place and you start to think back to, this had to happen, this had to happen, this had to happen for me to be here. And when, like you said, all those elements fell into play with Diana, that you happen to, all those little things, there's a great movie called Run Lola Run, where she, it's 4 times. And it's like, if she, if, for instance, if Thor makes a right out of the train station, that never happens, or if she decides, maybe she decides to take a shower before she moves her car, right? That never happens. Like all these things, right? And when you sit in a place of appreciation for something that happened, you can look back and go, wow, that's so cool, right? There's like magic there. You like appreciate it so much more.
It's the definition of a productive accident. It's exactly the same concept, converging. And once you describe the phrase or the concept, then people can say, oh yeah, that's how I met my wife, or that's how I got that job, or that's how once you've got the vocabulary, you start to see it everywhere, and it becomes quite predictable and repeatable. When you get curious people together, you keep talking until you find something that you both care about, and then you collaborate, and then these collaborations compound over time. So for instance, Chris, when we first met, you said, yeah, you're going to start this podcast. You interviewed me. Then you said, I'm writing a book, a gratitude anthology, and you're calling for essays from people around the world. I shared that with my daughter in Melbourne. She's written an essay, and shared it with Gail in Milwaukee. She's written an essay. I shared it to Nancy, a lady I go walking with. She wrote an essay.
You're my MVP there, buddy. You're one of my MVPs.
No, but you know what I mean. Everyone can be part of this whole movement that you've created, which is fantastic. So thanks for all the work you're doing, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. I love that, man. Yeah. And then here we are with Thor again. You just gifting me these wonderful people in my life. So it's such a pleasure, and I always speak very highly of you for very good reasons, Peter. Well, Thor, one of my go-to questions are, if you were to explain gratitude to like a 10-year-old, how would you go about doing that?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose you would have to explain that they are receiving something, and it's their reaction to receiving it. If they see it as something common, something something that has less meaning to them, or if it's something that in one way or the other is going to impact them, is going to impact their mood, is going to impact what's going to happen next. And I would say if that's a positive reaction, then that would be gratitude.
Okay, that's great. I was talking last week to a guy, and he gave the metaphor of he said it's if I was explaining to a kid, he said it would be that after we get finished eating, we clean the table, which I thought was really interesting. He was basically saying like the appreciation of the food and the placement of it is that we clean up our space as a show of appreciation for what you got. Which I thought,
if I would have to create a metaphor, then I would say that if you're shivering and you're cold and you come inside a warm room, or you put on a jacket.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. That's a great metaphor. I love that. That's a really great metaphor for gratitude. I love that. You like that, Peter?
Yeah, because it wraps around you, and it's a feeling that you get, right? The sensation of acknowledging something good that's happened to you. Just briefly, how I discovered this whole idea of gratitude was I attended an event, General Assembly, which is kind of like night school for startups, and there's a guy, Mush Panjwani, who was speaking, and his theme was the essence of an entrepreneur. And one of the stories that he created was he'd actually been made redundant, and I think he was 47 or something like that. And he's actually very good at what he does, super motivating, super positive, sales training sort of guy. But he's such an optimistic guy that he said, well, you know what, I was going to quit in a few years anyway and write a book. I've been doing some blogs and I wanted to put them together. So maybe I'll just start now. And what I loved about his story is that he sort of integrated a story of gratitude as well. He said, look, if you've left a big company, how do you stay focused and productive and all these other good things when you don't have this infrastructure around you? And one of his methods was through gratitude. He said, look, if you can have a shower with fresh running water, you're already better off than 80% of the people on the planet. So keep things in perspective and always maintain, this humility and all these other things. And what I loved about his story is that he created a daily habit of getting up at 5 a.m., going for a swim, having a good breakfast, being at his desk by 7 a.m. And he knew that he was creative in the morning from 7 till 11. And that's when he focused on organizing his blog and writing this book. And he actually reverse engineered his book. He said, look, I want it to be 100 pages and I want to finish it in 100 days. That means I need to do a page a day. And if you're up early and you're being creative and productive for 4 hours, you're probably going to get it done in 30 days. But through that story, I started a project to compile my first book. And I was on a flight to Melbourne and I thought, okay, I've been following Seth Godin and he encouraged you to do something creative every day, write a blog, just ship it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect, just get it out there. And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to write about business or finance or whatever, but maybe I could take that idea of gratitude and come up with a concept. I was reading Malcolm Gladwell at the time. He talks about 10,000 hours and how you have to be, you have to do 10,000 hours of practice to be an expert in anything. So that's where my gratitude project was born, 10,000 thank yous. And, I don't know what I'm up to, 1,250 or something like that. But that discipline of looking for something good that happens every day, and it could be just someone that holds a door open for you. It could be someone that does a presentation via Zoom, such as last night, a guy from New York did a presentation for us at work that I just sent a thank you on LinkedIn to. This event today is a no-brainer. Take a screenshot, share that broadly and say, look, check out this podcast that's just gone live or whatever it is. So anyway, that's the backstory. And I think explaining it to children is powerful because it's a gift that they will travel with them through life and help them get through difficult situations.
Yeah, that's great, man. I do love how your gratitude story started and the fact that you're dedicating yourself to these, setting a goal. So it's like you have intention with what you're doing, which keeps you in that mindset of looking for things to be grateful for so that you can share the appreciation. And obviously, I love the fact that you put it online and that you let it fly, that you let it, you don't keep it to yourself, which is fine. People can keep it to themselves, but that's part of my bag. Thor, I was thinking when we talked last week, you shared something really great with me. We were talking about perspective and how, obviously you've been kept in Hong Kong, but you shared some stuff about you shared a book and perspective, a way that helped you have a perspective. Yeah. So do you mind just sharing a little bit? Because I really loved it. I really loved our little discussion we had about that.
I don't know if I can, I don't know if I remember the discussion in particular, but the book you're referring to is called Endurance, I believe, and is about the Shackleton expedition to the South Pole and to Antarctica. And the idea was in 1911 they reached the South Pole, and then in 1914 this expedition they wanted to cross Antarctica from one coast to the other. And they sailed down there in the beginning of World War I. And there's no radio connectivity, there are no satellites, there's none of that stuff. It's a wooden ship, and they quickly get stuck in the ice. And they have to overwinter on board the ship, stuck in the ice. And then the next thing that happens is that the ice crushes the ship. And they are 28 men on board. And they have to abandon the ship in this ocean of ice and snow and whiteness. And there's a world war going on. Nobody cares about these 28 lives. People are dying every day. And if they give up, they're dead. So they are going through extreme toughness frostbite and fear and peril and danger in various ways.
And then they bump into Maria. Is that what you're going to tell us?
Yeah, then this door opens and
this light and this
like,
angel comes
out. What are you doing here?
Are you crazy?
She cooks some food for them and leads them.
It's a real surprise ending. It's a really surprise ending. No, I loved what I was saying when we were talking last week was obviously, you know, you've been in Hong, you know, you've been on the road for 7 years now.
Yeah.
You were so close to finishing this massive project of travel, you know, and what you said to me was that, you know, you read this book and it just gave you perspective. And I thought, and that's where the beauty was, is obviously, obviously it's like mentally we all get bogged down with stuff that upsets us and puts us in a cage. And you, obviously, I can completely understand why you would be very upset in this journey. But I love the fact that you're like, look, somebody recommended this book, Endurance. And I read it and it made me go, you know what? These people have problems. You're like, those are real problems. You know, you made the statement, which allowed you, and even, you know, you go, okay, obviously I'm stuck here and that kind of sucks, but it really doesn't suck. You know, it's like,
well, you know, so yeah, I can wallow a little bit in self-pity and go like, I could have been home by now. I have a wonderful, beautiful, intelligent woman back home who I'm engaged to. We could have been married by now and we're supposed to start a family. And I do understand that Hong Kong is a wonderful place to be stuck. I could be off a lot worse. I could be stuck on board a ship or a tiny island with very little to do. But I got stuck in Hong Kong and I have friends and I have a roof over my head and I get to meet wonderful people like Peter and I, we've been out for dinner a few times. And you know, so my situation overall is good, but there's the mental stress of it. And I look back at the past 7 years and yes, there have been moments where there has been legit danger and I could have lost my life and things could have gone very, very bad, very, very quickly in a number of cases, but it's been short-lived. You know, I was usually in and out of danger within a half a day or within a couple of days. And you know, it's a different kind of hardship. And it was a really good book to read because I do wonder if I would be able to go through what those men went through. And they seem kind of quiet about it. They didn't have Instagram. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have those places to go like, oh, it's really cold today. Like, I don't like this. I want to go home. They had their journals and their diaries, and there you can read some of the stuff within the book. They quote their journals, and it doesn't really seem like complaining. Like it's a very sort of gentleman way of complaining back in 100 years ago. So that was quite amazing. I really enjoyed the book. Something which ties into that would be I do have this Instagram account, and I did a post about wearing a mask in Hong Kong, and I just sort of said that I think that one of the reasons why we're not social distancing in mass transportation is because everybody wears a mask that sort of helps. And on top of that we're not wearing the masks to protect ourselves, we're doing it to protect others. So I thought it was a nice little post to do. And then most people got behind it and supported it. And then some people just attacked it and go like, this is draconian law and we're losing our rights and constitutional this and that and so on and so on. And I was like, where the heck is all of this coming from? And a lot of people were saying, just, you know, what's the big deal? Just put on a mask. And so people were like, we're losing our rights and this is how it begins and we're going to a very, very dark place and so on and so on. So what I did was I made a comparison and said, well, what if we go back to Second World War? In Denmark, where I'm from, we had to black out the cities at night. So they had to get these blackout curtains that they could draw down so that when airplanes would go across, they wouldn't know where the cities were, they wouldn't be able to orient, and the cities wouldn't be bombed and so on. And I was just wondering, these Instagram warriors and social media warriors, if they would be able to live through a period like Second World War, which lasted 6 years, or if they would be the ones going like, no, I will not put up these curtains. It's my right to have all the lights on and shine light up towards the sky. You're like, I sort of want people to understand that all of this is very temporary. That yes, you might have had rights last year that you feel that you don't have right now, but it's it's teamwork. We're trying to accomplish something here. And if you believe in it or not, just be on the team for a while. And you're not going to lose your rights forever. Eventually, you will be able to travel, go on a holiday. Eventually, you won't have to wear a mask. Eventually, no one will be chasing you if you don't wash your hands. Although you should always wash your hands. But it is a strange time, and it's always good to compare to something else. Because the problems that we have today, sometimes they're severe, but a lot of times you can find something and you can go, oh well, I think I'll get through this. Someone else has lived through something that's far harder than this.
Yeah, I agree. I know we only have so much time left. I was really wanting to talk about North Korea, but I don't know if we have time or not. Should we share that for another time, Thor? Or
yeah, let's skip North Korea for another time. But I would like to bring Hong Kong in, a really brief story, if that's.
Oh
okay.
Yes, please, yes,
Peter
go, man,
and I
go.
are in Hong Kong. So I was supposed to be here for 4 days, and I arrived just as COVID-19 was breaking out in China, and we didn't really know about it, and we didn't know how long it was going to go on or anything like this. So when I arrived on the ship, I just got noticed that a virus had broken out far deep inside China, far away from where I was. And meanwhile, a family here in Hong Kong, an expat family, said, well, if you need a place to stay, sort of like Peter, he did with Adrian Belloc, go like, do you need a place to stay? And I went like, yeah, that would be great. And they had this apartment and a guest room. And I came up to their house, and they weren't even there. They were celebrating Chinese New Year in China. And then I got the keys for the house. I walked into their house, people I've never met before. I was supposed to be there for 4 days. And after a few days, they came back from China, and I met them. And then one thing led to the next, and I couldn't leave Hong Kong due to the virus, and regulations came in place, and things got more and more complicated. And I ended up staying with that family for 5 months. So can you imagine that? You're going from, do you need a place to stay for a few days, to staying with a family of 4, a wife and husband and 2 wonderful boys, and eating with them and going hiking with them and sightseeing and playing games and talking and discussing with them. And now I've been in Hong Kong between January when I arrived, and now it's October. And for the entire time I've been here, I haven't had to pay for accommodation. I've always been able to bounce around. Someone's put a roof over my head. Someone's helped me out in one way or the other. So
and you realize we've got a room here whenever you run out of,
I know.
Come on by.
Peter, he actually offered me to come and stay with him. Told me the Adrian Belloc story when we first met, and said that, you're more than welcome to come and stay at my place as well. So certainly a lot of gratitude within that. And we have a lot to be grateful for. We just need to look for it.
Right, man. I agree. That's a beautiful story about Hong Kong, and that's so powerful to just who you are in your journey. And it's like, you show up and everything you've done before you precedes you, just who you are, you're showing it. The journey's created who you are now. And when you show up, you just have, there's so much goodwill. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, man. And I love that. You're welcome, man. There's a couple gratitude questions I wanted to do, so I'll try to get these through here real quick. So Thor, I did this with Peter before, but it's a really simplistic, like, I'm going to ask you a question. You're just going to give me a 1-word response. Okay.
Right.
You ready? I'm going to do a couple of these. So one is this. Okay. When you hear the words, somebody in my life I'm grateful for, who's the first person that popped in your mind? It's not about order. Who popped in your mind? 1 word.
My fiance.
Fiance. Okay. We're going to go another level now. Not your fiance. So I'm going to ask you again. Somebody in your life you're grateful for. Who pops in your head?
Abdul Karim.
Abdul Karim. Okay, we're gonna go one more. Someone in your life you're grateful for.
Well, I'd say Maria.
Maria. Okay. Okay. All right. So we already heard Maria's story. Let's back up and tell us about the second person you mentioned to me. Tell me why you're grateful for him. Why he popped in.
I was between a rock and a hard place in 2015 in Central Africa. My grandmother had died, and I had to choose between completing the project or flying home and being there for the funeral. And I had recovered from cerebral malaria, and I lost my financial sponsor at the time, and I was starting to get these awful migraines. I've never had migraines in my life, so this is the first time I discovered that a migraine isn't just a headache, but it's something else. I was the subject of extreme racism for long periods, where I, for the first time in my life, really experienced what it was to be hated due to the color of my skin. And a lot of things were complicated, and I felt like the outside world didn't care about what I was trying to accomplish, and didn't understand what I was trying to do with Once Upon a Saga. And I was struggling so hard to get into a very closed off country in Central Africa. And Central Africa is amazing in so many ways, but it is a hard environment. And a lot of people struggle in various ways, but it's beautiful, and there are a lot of friendly people, and the food's good, and the flora and the fauna. So I can certainly talk it up, but I was in a really tough place, and I was really struggling. And I was at this border for the third time, being denied in the most horrible way to go across. And I just had nothing left within me. My relationship with my now fiance back home, the long distance relationship, was really shaky at the time. There was a lot of strain on it, and I mean, there was just, I couldn't see why I was in this project anymore. I'd been going for a couple of years. I was quite thin. I was about to give up. I couldn't see if there was there was no benefit for me anymore. I was not doing it for myself. There was no pleasure in it for me, and I couldn't see that anyone else wanted me to do it. So the question was really, why am I still doing this? And I should just go home and have a better life than this. And in that moment, I was seated on the side of the road and just wondering, this border and this place and this life and this hell that I have created for myself. And I saw a taxi that was parked further up the road, and decided I'm going to head over to that taxi. I don't care about my backpack. I don't care about any of that. I have money in my pocket and a credit card, and my passport is on me. That taxi is going to take me to the airport. I'll find a flight, connect somehow. I'm going home, and this is over. I don't need this. Nobody needs this. Nobody wants this. And before I reached the taxi, Abdul Karim showed up on his little motorcycle. And Abdul Karim is a guy who lives off transporting people. He taxis people in the border area on his little motorcycle. And the local police told him he had to wear protection equipment. And so he took that literally, and he went out and got like a builder's hat, and he's riding around with that. And Abdul Karim had transported me 2 times before this. So I sort of knew him without knowing him. I just recognized his face and his builder's hat. And he saw me, and he saw that I was sad. And he came over, and we didn't speak the same language. So I don't know what Abdul Karim said, but it was encouraging in the tone and the atmosphere. And then he put his hand on my shoulder and looked me in the eyes, and then he indicated I should come with him, and I hopped on the back of his motorcycle. I really didn't feel like anything, and he drove me over to a sort of tea house, and we sat down and we had some tea, and he was talking to me in a language I don't understand. And I got some encouragement from him without even being able to speak the same language and understand word for word what he was saying. I understood that he was cheering me up, and he gave me a break when I needed it. And I saw the same taxi, and I decided that taxi is not taking me to the airport. That taxi is taking me 800 kilometers, some 600 miles to another border through hours and hours of jungle and dirt roads and checkpoints, and to another border. And I'm going to give it another go, and the system is not going to get me down. And I think essentially Abdul Karim, he saved the project. I think if he hadn't intersected that situation, I would have gotten into that taxi, I would have gone to the airport, and I would have gotten more and more firm in my belief that I was doing the right thing and I was on my way home, versus him coming and changing my mindset and essentially helping me find that element within myself that made me fight my way out of that hole and get onward with the expedition, which has now led me to be in Hong Kong, where I've met with Peter, and through Peter I've been connected with you, and we're having this conversation today.
That's beautiful, man. What do you think about that, Peter? You got anything you want to say about that?
I think it's amazing. I'm really glad that we've captured this conversation, because it's overlapping in lots of different dimensions, right? We can see how hard it has been for Thor to persist. You know, you think about anything, you know, but for sure he's going to look back on this and have no regrets. You know, it's tough now, we know that, and you know, it comes through some of Thor's conversation. He said, look, even doing all the social media is a chore, right? It's just something that he feels he needs to do. But, you know, at some stage, all of this content that you've created is going to be powerful, you know, and someone's going to play you in a movie one day, or, you know, something like that. And, you know, it'll all be worth it. And you'll be with you'll get married finally somewhere. You know, I think you were initially planning for New Zealand. I'm not sure if that's still on the cards or what's going to happen. But yeah, I really hope you do persist, because you're so close. And the world's going into this weird funk. Like you said, World War II was 6 years. I hope it's not something like that, but you never know, right? We kind of need to assume the worst, I guess, and hope for the best. But I really appreciate the way this conversation's come together, and you know, I know we're going to do more. I hope next time we have a fourth person down to complete the quadrant. On my screen, I've got, you know, 3 out of 4 squares completed. So adding one more person to this could be one way to play with this idea, and then the next time we have 5 people, the next time we have 6 people, and then this, you know, this snowballing, compounding conversation keeps on going around the world. That would be kind of a fun idea to play with. So Gail could be the next person down here, as one example.
Oh, for sure. I want to do Gail next time. Yeah. Hey, the more the merrier, you know, that's where I'm at. I know we only got a couple minutes left, and I appreciate you saying all that, Peter. I wanted to, you know, Thor, my final question to everybody who comes on the podcast is, if you have any, you know, you've obviously tried, you're coming from a very cool perspective. That was part of the reason I wanted to talk to you. You know, if you could just give some suggestions to people to help them either find a place of gratitude or do things that you do to actively keep yourself in practice, if you could just share a couple examples or ideas with us.
I think they should look for their inner Maria, either that they're going to be Maria, or they're going to look for Maria out there. My father, I have amazing parents, and they both influenced me in a number of different ways. And I remember my father saying, be good, but don't be an idiot. And I think there's a very important distinction where go out into the world and not necessarily prepare for the worst and expect the worst and hope for the best, but go out there and know that everything is not good and not everybody is good, and you can't just, you know, but generally most people have absolutely no reason to harm you, and most people are just people. I would argue everyone's people are just people, and they get stuck in traffic, and they take selfies and upload to social media, and they like good food, and they fall in love, and they get married, and you know, they take care of their jobs, or they try to get their education, and so on. So the vast majority of people out there, they are just going to point you in the right direction or help you with a translation, And you know, once you start seeing that, suddenly there's a lot to be grateful for. Because, you know, I've reached 194 countries in an unbroken journey without flying. I'm among the 300 most traveled people in the world. I'm 9 countries from becoming the first to reach every country in the world without flying. And some people look at it and go like, yeah, you did that. And I look back at it and go like, well, I was a part of it, but along with me, there were thousands of people who got me to where I am today, and in various different ways. And sometimes it's a guy like Abdul Karim that comes over and looks me in the eyes and pats me on the shoulder and helps me get a cup of tea. And sometimes it's a family that hosts me for 5 months when I get stuck. So, you know, there's a lot of gratitude, and you can find it everywhere once you start looking for it, I'm sure.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. I love that a lot, man. That was really great. Obviously, you know, you're there, and it isn't just you. You know, it's all these moments, the kindness, people caring, this all this. There's so much, right? There's so much, and that's what you just said. Like, there's so much to be grateful for in your journey. You're here because of all that all those gifts, the kindness that were given to you, people that cared about your journey or cared about you in that one moment, right? Just like the guy seeing you on the side of the road, right? He just saw you and he cared enough to like, get on the back of my bike. It's powerful, man. It is powerful.
There would be so much hardship within what I do, but in the world in general, if other people didn't interact and other people didn't care to some degree. And it's not just about what people they can give you, it's just as much. Like, I mean, like, find Maria within yourself. If you see someone who looks thirsty, ask them if they want some water. If you see someone that looks sad, you know, smile. And, you know, there's a lot you can give as well and be a part of it. You can be Maria as well as you can meet her.
That's beautiful, man. Where can you just tell everybody if they want to reach out to you or, you know, see you? Can you just name off the places that they can find you?
Sure thing. So we named the project Once Upon a Saga. That would be just like Once Upon a Time, but time has been traded out for SAGA, Saga, Once Upon a Saga. And if you search that on the internet, you would find tons of stuff. But the main channels are Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's YouTube, there's the website with a blog as well. And people are welcome to come and join and ask questions and see where I've been and follow the journey and see if I make it all the way to the end.
That's great, man. I'll definitely be following. I'll definitely put those in the show notes. I know you guys got to get going here within a minute. So, Peter, you have any closing thoughts on our first Productive Accident series episode?
No, I think it's amazing that the fact that we keep on connecting and collaborating. In fact, even the 10,000 thank yous. Oh, there we go. There's a book down the bottom. The 10,000 thank yous I did. You know, if I do one a day, that's 27.4 years. So. You know, and I haven't kept up because, you know, like Thor mentioned, it's a bit of a drag sometimes to say, well, hang on, is this a stupid idea? Why am I even doing this? But the motivation is I'm looking forward to reminiscing, right? If I actually do capture something good from every single day of my life for the next 27 years, it's going to be great to look back on. Plus, I really love how that you've picked up, you're doing 10,000 videos, and that's an extension of the 10,000 hours or the 10,000 thank yous. And that's just building on each other. So we're all kind of connecting, collaborating, inspiring each other. And I'm sure that there's other examples that we're going to keep on finding. So keep up the great work, Chris, and keep going, Thor.
Thanks, Peter. Well, this has been wonderful, guys. I really appreciate you spending the morning with me. So I'm Chris with Peter and Thor, just reminding everybody to stay grateful.